hit record. All right, good morning, everybody. For those who don't know me, I am Danae Wolf. I am the EdTech specialist for OSU Extension. Jamie, my sidekick, she is in Hawaii right now. So she's having a really, really great time on the beaches of Hawaii. Her pictures have been just fabulous, and it's about 4 in the morning there, so she will not be joining us this morning. This morning's session is meant to be a very, very basic informational session on Zoom. We've had some basic trainings in the past offered by CFAES and some Zoom trainers, I guess you would call them. And those are available on the CFAES Zoom portal, which I will take you to in just a second. So if you need like a really good session to just kind of get you started, you might want to check out those basic and advanced trainings, because those will give you a really broad overview of how to use Zoom. So if you can just let me know, how many of you guys have used Zoom before? Again, we only have a few people with audio feeds or with video feeds, but for those of you with audio, if you can unmute yourselves and let me know. I see Ken giving me a thumbs up. And I think you have a raise your hand feature too, right? Everybody should have a raise hand feature. Ken, can you confirm that?
Yes, it should be there.
I'm not seeing it on my end. That's why I'm wondering. And I don't see anybody actually raising their hand, so I'm not sure. So if you can just type into the chat box if you've used Zoom, and whether you've used it as just a participant on a meeting or whether you've actually gone ahead and scheduled and hosted your own Zoom meeting. Kirsten says participant only. I've been on a meeting, Debbie Brown. Yeah, Mimi, I can't find the raise hand feature either. Typically there's like a raise hand feature, and I can see that then in my participant list, how many people raise their hand. It's a really great thing for asking questions. I know that's a feature, at least in the webinar.
Yeah, I think it's in webinars.
So maybe it's just a webinar only feature. So that's a good place to actually start. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between a meeting platform and then the webinar platform. So all CFAES employees have the meeting platform, and we thought it was just good for a meeting of up to 50 people, but if I log into my Zoom account, it says I can have a meeting of up to 100 people. So that's 100 people that have video rights and audio rights. So I don't know how you have set up your screens, each of you, to see me on your computer. Right now, I have it set to a grid view. So I'm seeing a grid, sort of like a Brady Bunch grid of everybody in the meeting. You can also set it to speaker view, so only the person speaking will be highlighted on your computer. I usually like to see everybody, so I usually keep mine on the grid feature. The meeting platform is accessible to all CFAES and Extension employees. How many of you have actually logged in to your Zoom account with your single sign-on? And again, you can just type this into the chat box. A couple people. Yes. Yes. Okay, so that's good. I know some people have yet to log into their OSU account. Some people are still telling me they're using their free basic account, and I do highly, highly recommend you switch over. I'm going to type into the chat right here, the CFAES Zoom portal. This is where you can sign into your Zoom account on your web browser, and where you can create meetings, but there's a lot of other things there as well. So the meeting platform is really great for meetings where people, like all of your participants should have video and audio rights. So it's sort of a great way for two-way communication between a group of people. The webinar platform, not everybody has a webinar license. We have, I believe, 2 webinar licenses for webinars of up to 500 participants, and then I think 5 webinar licenses. I'm looking at Ken to see if he's confirming this. I think 5 webinar licenses for webinars up to 100 people. And if you, oh, 10, okay. So there is a way to request a webinar license if you're planning on hosting like a big webinar that's going to go out to a large group of people. There's a way to request that license, and our CFAES IT team will give you access to one of those licenses for the day and time that you need it. And you set up your webinar, you send out the invites, you can do registration, you can send reminder emails through that. It's a really, really great thing, but you do have to request that webinar license in advance. Because they only have a few of those available to us. So any questions about sort of the difference between a meeting and a webinar? Another thing I should mention about the webinar platform is your participants are, how do I say this? They don't have audio rights, they don't have video rights, they're listen only participants. So if you want your participants, if it's going to be a smaller group and you want them to be able to like have a two-way conversation, the meeting platform is going to be the better option for you. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to share my screen here. I'm just going to share my whole desktop, and we're going to go to the CFAES Zoom portal. So does everybody see the CFAES Zoom portal on their end? Getting a thumbs up. Okay, so this is kind of where you can access all of the things that you need to be able to access for Zoom. And this is a great little Go link to remember. It's just go.osu.edu/Zoom. And notice how on the very top bar here, they have the download center. You can join a meeting or you can sign in. If you have not signed in to your OSU Zoom account yet, this would be the place to do that. You hit the sign in. I'm already signed in, but it will take you to the single sign-on login page where you will sign in with your username and password that you use for all of your OSU accounts. And then from there, you will be signed into Zoom. The other thing I want to mention is the download center. And the download center gives you all of the different applications that you can use for Zoom. And I'll talk a little bit about the three that I have. The Zoom client for meetings, you'll want to download. This is the desktop application for you. And I have mine open down here. From the desktop application, which you should be able to see on my screen now, you have some really great sort of easy to navigate ways of starting a meeting or joining a meeting or even chatting with other people in the college. So if you have colleagues that you want to instant message with as opposed to sending them an email, you can do that all through the Zoom client. So I guess we'll just kind of go through. Here's the home of the Zoom client. You can schedule a meeting directly from here. If I were to click this, it'll give you all the options for scheduling a meeting, and then you'll get an invite link that you can send to other people. You can go to all of your scheduled meetings that you have. Right now, the only meeting that I have is our meeting that we're on here right now. You can go to contacts, and all of CFAES employees as well as extension will be available in here. And notice how if you just hover over anybody's name, you have the option to chat with them. That's going to send them basically an instant message. And you can also invite them to a meeting. And then if you go over here to chat, this is actually a really nice, a nice option. Notice how I have a couple chats here. My husband works for CFAES, so sometimes we chat via the Zoom chat feature. You can just click on somebody's name, or you can do a search for anybody. Let's say I want to send a message to Ken. I can just search for his name, and then I can pop this up and click chat, and then Ken and I can just chat back and forth. So it's not an Outlook email, it's just like a little private chat. You can invite a bunch of people to a private chat, and it's just a really great way of communicating with people without having to use email. The thing I do want to mention about this, the caveat to Zoom group chat, is if you are using this, anybody that you're sending a message to has to have the Zoom client open on their desktop. If they do not have that application open, they will not get the notification that they got a message from you until they open that. So I've run into this before where people have messaged me and I didn't get that message until days later when I opened my Zoom client. So you might get to a point where you have your Zoom client automatically open when you start your computer, or you just leave it open all the time if you're using it a lot, especially if you're using that chat feature. So any questions about that part of the Zoom client? And again, feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Danae, I just want to go backwards a little bit to after you download the Zoom client. When you sign on, it's going to say sign on with Zoom, and then to the right of that, it's going to say sign on with SSO, sign on with Google, something like that. It's real important to sign on. Obviously, everybody's got the download, but you have to hit SSO, which stands for single sign-on. and that will take you to the university page where you enter your university password and your name.number, and that's what gets you the pro version. Okay, if see up on Danae's home screen there, it says Zoom Pro account. If she were to have signed on for the first time and just done it with the Zoom, log in with Zoom, you would have, and the Pro version gets you more features and things like that. So that's really important, particularly if you're going to have a meeting. With the free version, it's only for 40 minutes. And if you don't have the Pro, it'll kick you out of your meeting. So make sure you use SSO.
Yes, and I know some people are still using their Zoom free accounts that they've developed over the last few years for those shorter meetings. So definitely make sure you sign on with that single sign-on option. Any questions about that? I'm going to show you a little bit of settings as well here from the Zoom client. And there's sort of two different places that you can change your settings outside of an actual meeting. There's the sort of the web browser when you sign in, and then there's also the settings in the Zoom client. So if you click settings here in the Zoom client, you have general settings that you can go through. I highly, highly recommend that if you have not done this yet, you go through every single one of these settings, read them, and then make sure they are set to what you want them to be set at. So for example, if you're using dual monitors, you'll want to make sure you have that set for there. You can choose to enter full screen automatically. I don't like to use full screen because I like to be able to navigate around my computer when I'm in a meeting or webinar. So I don't have that clicked. Just go through here and make sure that everything is where it needs to be. You also have some settings for that instant message, that chat feature. So like if you want to receive a notification, you can have that. You can make sure that you're getting a notification when you get a chat. You also have some audio settings. This is a good place to test your audio if you're not sure if your audio is coming through well. You also have some video settings. So notice now I'm going to be on here again. You can choose a couple different options here. The one that I wrote a blog post on a couple of weeks ago was this touch up my appearance option. Kind of gives a nice soft focus on your face. So I like to have that turned on. Some other different options here that I recommend going through. And then one of the more important things that I noticed, one of the things that I changed when I signed on here was my record option. So as CFAES employees, we don't automatically get cloud storage for our Zoom recordings because that's, as you might know, videos are very large files and we have very limited cloud-based storage. So there is sort of a priority list of who can save their recordings in the cloud. Otherwise, all of your recordings will save to your computer's hard drive. And what I noticed before I went in and changed this setting is your Zoom recordings save to some like folder that's like hidden in the depths of your computer. And it took me a while to find out where they were actually saving. So I went in and changed this so that all of my recordings are automatically stored on my computer's desktop. That way, when I'm done with this morning's meeting, it's going to save on a folder directly on my desktop. I know exactly where to access it. I will pull it into iMovie and do any edits if I need to, like on the back end or front end. And then from there, I just upload it to YouTube and then post it to our EdTech blog. But it's good to know exactly where your recordings are being saved. Otherwise, you might have to spend some time digging into your computer and doing some searches for where those ended up. You also have the option of choosing a location to save that file after every single meeting. So if you know that you're going to be saving them to different places, you can click that option. You also have the option of saving a separate audio file for every single participant who speaks during a meeting. I don't know why that would be important personally, but you might have a reason for that you want to do that. I'm going to check the chat box here. Do webinars for less than 50 all the time with Adobe Connect? Should we continue to use that, or does the meeting platform we talk about do the same thing? So Mimi, I would highly recommend you at least use Zoom once for a meeting, because in my experience, it's way more intuitive. It tends to work a lot easier for your participants than Adobe Connect ever worked for us. That's part of the reason why the college made the switch to Zoom, is because it's just better. And a lot of people would agree with that. It's more intuitive for both you as a host, but also for your participants. The meeting platform, like with Adobe Connect, everybody sort of connects in, everybody can have like audio rights on Adobe Connect. That is true also for the meeting platform in Zoom. So you can show your PowerPoint when you do a screen share, and I can talk more about this in a little bit too. When you do a screen share, you can actually have the option of not just sharing your entire screen, but sharing a specific application. So I could just share just my PowerPoint application. So it's not going to show any of the other stuff on my desktop. Or you can just show your web browser, and it's not going to show anything else. So they don't necessarily do the same thing. Again, as CFAES employees, we have a meeting capacity. I think it's for up to 100 people. My pro account says 100 people. The webinar platform is really for if you are just teaching a large audience, and that audience does not have to be able to communicate back to you other than just via the chat. So they're not going to have video rights or audio rights. And in my experience, it reduces a lot of the complications that we tend to get when participants are like, my audio is not working, or my video is not working, or how do I do this? They just don't have those rights to begin with. So it's just basically you sharing out information to an audience. And you can have various panelists too. You might have a webinar that you schedule where you have 5 different speakers. And when you set up that webinar, you will set each one of those speakers up to be what Zoom calls a panelist presenter. And then each one of those panelists will have audio and video rights as well. So does that answer your question? Yeah, Ken.
Just real quick, the reason you have 100 is because we gave you webinar rights, okay, a while back.
Okay, I don't have the option of scheduling a webinar though in my account. I've looked at that before.
I'll have to check on that.
Here, it says I have to, yeah, so mine's not automatically enabled.
All right. Huh.
And if I go to my profile and just do the meeting capacity, it says 100 here. And on the last one, several people checked and they all said they had 100 capacity.
Oh.
Yeah, that was mine too, because I was like, wait a second, I thought it was only 50, but everybody on the meeting last time confirmed that they had 100 capacity.
Alrighty, I'll look into
in their
that.
basic account, or in their pro account rather. Yeah, I thought that was kind of nice. I mean, I don't know why you would have 100 people that have video and audio rights. That would kind of get crazy. But again, if you have, let's say, one of the people who were on the last meeting said this would be a really great opportunity to do like a JSEP meeting. Where instead of everybody having to come to campus to engage with that JSEP meeting, you could do this. And then you also have a breakout room option, which is a really, really cool feature that allows you to actually break everybody off into separate little meeting rooms. So we have, I think, 11 people on this meeting here this morning. If I wanted to divide the group in half, and half of us could discuss one topic and the other half could discuss another topic, we would actually break out into separate little rooms. And we would just be chatting with the people in our little breakout room. And then you can bring everybody back together as a big group and talk about what was discussed. So it's actually kind of a really, really cool feature in meetings. You do not have that option as a webinar. So after downloading the Zoom client for meetings, what email and password do we use to sign on? So you need to log into the single sign-on. That's the SSO option. So instead of just logging in, there should be an option someplace to sign on with SSO. So let me know if you see that. But that's where it will take you to the website. It's the same place that you sign on to like access email or access your like payroll information and pretty much everything else at OSU. So let's go back to settings and see if we missed anything. You can get some statistics here for meetings, like, you know, bandwidth. I've never really looked at that. You can send feedback directly to Zoom through this. So if you're having an issue with something or you have an idea for a feature that you'd like to see, you can type that into here and just instantly send feedback. And then you also have some accessibility options here. NAEP, SDP, along with, I think it was University of Arkansas Extension, they did a whole series on accessibility for essentially digital content, which was really nice. And part of what they talked about was like the importance of having captioning on. And the captioning is a setting that you can set in your web browser when you log into Zoom. And I'll show you that here in just a second. So give me 1 second here. Okay. So is everybody seeing my my web browser, right?
Yes.
Okay. So again, when you log into Zoom, when you go to that Zoom portal and you hit sign on, I'm already signed in, but that will take you to the OSU OSU sign on. I have so many windows of the same exact thing open here, so I'm going to close some of these. Go to your profile. This is where you can add a profile image. I highly, highly recommend you add a profile image here because that will, here, I'm going to do it. Sure, give me 1 second. I'm just changing the screen that I'm sharing. So what, do you guys all just see my web browser at this point?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I highly recommend you add a profile image here because that way when you choose to turn your video feed off in a Zoom meeting, instead of it being a black box, which is what I see for most of you here, you can actually see your image. Now that block O bug is what we call it, where that block O is, that will not automatically add to your profile image. You have to add that, and I think we have those available on our EdTech blog, but they're also available on the university branding website, which if you guys have questions about that, I can send you to that web page where you can access that. And that way it just kind of makes it look like it's nicely OSU branded, kind of makes it look nice and official. From here, you'll kind of see what kind of user you are. So notice how this says pro user. If you had a basic account that you signed up for earlier, before CFAES adopted Zoom, if you log in with those credentials, this will say basic, and it will tell you that you only have, I think the 40-minute limit meetings with up to 50 people. Notice how as a pro user, my meeting capacity is 100, and then you can choose some of your other standard, like your default country and things like that. The meeting settings, though, that's what I want you guys to pay close attention to. If you go to meeting settings, this is where you can change a lot of sort of the advanced features that you have available to you as a Zoom Pro user. You can choose to turn on or off chat and private chat for meetings. You can actually allow the host to put an attendee on hold. So if, let's say for some reason, if you were like on a hiring panel to hire a candidate for a job, and for whatever reason that candidate couldn't come and participate in an interview process live in person, so you decided to do it over Zoom. I was trying to think of ways that you could actually use this feature, and this is what came to mind. Let's say you interviewed that candidate, and then the interviewers on the interview panel wanted to just discuss something among them. They could actually put that candidate on hold, so they would not hear you, they would not see you, they would have nothing to see. They would just kind of be like suspended on hold in that Zoom meeting. The interview panel could discuss something, and then they could bring that candidate back on board when they were ready to discuss something with that person. So that's how you might be able to use that. You have the option of sending feedback to Zoom, and then you can turn on polling as well. Some of your advanced settings here, if you want the option to be able to do breakout rooms, you have to go in and edit that setting and turn that on. Some of the other ones that are important here, closed captioning, notice how I have that turned off right now. That is something that we realistically probably should all have turned on. That way, any of our meeting attendees who might be hard of hearing, they will get real-time captions of your meeting. And that is just a Zoom feature. Zoom, I think, just does voice recognition. That's how they do that closed captioning in real time. There is a lag. It has to recognize your voice and then translate it into what it believes that you're saying, and then spit that back out into the closed captioning. It might not be 100% accurate, but it is a good option there to have, and it's just a good Zoom feature that you don't have to like pay extra for or anything. The other one that I want to mention is this virtual background. This is basically a green screen option. And if you noticed before, when Ken had his video feed on, Ken has this option turned on. He has a nice Zoom. See behind him how it says Zoom. So Ken is using the virtual background option. What I want to warn you of is I had this setting turned on at one point because I wanted to play around with it. I turned the setting on. I do not actually have a green screen because I just haven't purchased one yet. I left that setting turned on, and then I logged into a Zoom meeting like a week later, and I was wearing this like bright teal dress, and parts of my dress were essentially like glowing, and then my eyes, which are green, were also glowing. So I looked like this scary like cyborg person And I was like, what's going on? Like, why is my video feed so messed up? And I realized it's because it thought that green screen was turned on. So I actually had to back out of that meeting. I had to leave the meeting that I was in, log into Zoom on my web browser, set that setting to be off, and then log back into the Zoom meeting. And then everything was normal again. So do make sure, yeah, Ken.
You can turn it off while you're in a meeting. I don't mean to.
Oh, while you're in a meeting.
Yeah. You
See,
click
and
on
that's what I figured you could do.
You click on your settings in your, in your Zoom client.
Okay.
You go to video background, and then you can say none.
Okay. I feel like I tried to do that, and for some reason it was not just turning it off for me like it just did for you.
No.
Okay. So that is really good to know. So that is a feature you can just enable and then turn it on and off in an individual meeting.
Right. And then that's also where you can add images. Like there's like Erie, where I'm leaving, going after this meeting. You can put a PowerPoint individual slide in there for a branded background real easily. Or you can just, you know, play around with it. Like that.
So you can make people think that, like, Jamie, you're in Hawaii, when in reality you are in, for me, Worcester, Ohio this morning is very gloomy and it's been storming all morning.
Right.
So that's kind of a cool feature. That's really good to know, because I was like, there has to have been a way to turn that feature off in a meeting, and I couldn't figure it out last time. So I appreciate knowing that now. So other options, let's see, closed captioning, attention tracking. This one is really kind of interesting, and maybe Ken, you can explain this better, but as far as I can understand, this will actually see if a participant has basically, like, if they're doing email as opposed to looking at Zoom. So you can see how many people are like disengaged from your meeting or webinar.
Yeah, it's used in like classes, you know, a lot. That like somebody hasn't moved their mouse in a certain amount of time and things like that. I've never really used it. I've just read about it, but it is available. You know, I guess I would yell, you know, hey, Gaston, wake up, Michelle, what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
Things like that.
So that's kind of a neat feature. And if you are in a situation where you are teaching students and you want to make sure that, like, everybody's paying attention, you could have that turned on. The other cool feature here is the waiting room. So if you are, and I think this is just, okay, so it's meetings, and I think there's an option for webinars too. Basically, I usually allow people to start joining my meetings before I've joined. That way, if I'm running a little bit behind, I don't want people to join and think, oh, she's not here. So everybody can join my meetings beforehand. That's a setting that I set when I set up my meeting. But you can also allow your participants to join the meeting and then be put in a waiting room. And they will not join into the meeting until you have essentially let them join the meeting once you are logged in and ready for them. So it's just kind of an extra setting for you as a host to make sure that you are ready before all of your meeting participants can see you. The other thing that I have, and I think this is a setting in my Zoom client here. Yeah, let me do a new share.
The email notification comes in real handy too. If you have a meeting scheduled and you allow people to enter before you, it will send you an email if you've forgotten about it.
Yes.
You'll get an email that says, people are waiting for you.
That is a nice little feature. I do have that turned on, and I'll show you that in just a second. One of the other things that I wanted to show you is as a host, I've gone into my accounts here in my Zoom client settings, and I've turned off my video feed every time I join a meeting. That way I am not unprepared. Like if I join somebody else's meeting, I'm not unprepared, like, oh, I wasn't ready, I didn't look good. And you know, my audio feed or my video feed showed you know, me in a position that I wasn't comfortable being shown in, I guess. I wrote a blog post about this a couple of weeks ago as well. I think I don't know what my settings are here. Maybe this is back here. Maybe this is a setting that pops up in your individual meeting settings. You can actually choose to to disable all of your participants' video and audio when they join a meeting. There are advantages and disadvantages to this. If you have everybody set to have their video and audio automatically enabled when they join a meeting, people might join in not expecting to see themselves on their video feed. They might not even realize that their video feed is on for a while. And I've experienced that before in meetings. It can be kind of embarrassing because people, like, sometimes we've had people join meetings and they're like in the middle of taking a big bite of their lunch, or they're like sitting down and blowing their nose, and then they realize that they're on camera, and it's like this like deer in headlights, like, oh, I wasn't expecting like my video feed to automatically start. We don't want to put people in those compromising positions or embarrass people. So it's a good idea that if you are going to automatically have participants' video and audio feeds start, it's a good idea to let them know, warn them and say, hey, depending on your Zoom settings, if you don't have a Zoom account, your video feed, if you have a webcam on your computer, will automatically start. Otherwise, you can have it set so that when somebody joins your meeting, their video and audio feeds are automatically disabled. The disadvantage to that is then some people might not ever enable them. So like in the case here, we only have a handful of people who have their video feeds on, and that makes a meeting a little bit less personal. Personally, I like when people use their videos, because then I feel like I'm in a face-to-face meeting. It's kind of informal. I don't feel like I'm the only one there. So I love when people have their webcams and have their webcams enabled so that I can see them. Again, it's just sort of a nice thing to let people know if they're going to be joining a meeting with their video turned on. Any questions about that? Okay. So the email notification that Ken was talking about, you can get an email notification when an attendee joins your meeting before host. So there have been times before where maybe a half hour or 45 minutes before the meeting even started, I got an email saying somebody joined your meeting. And sometimes because of the way I send my emails, if you click the link in some of my emails, it just takes you automatically to the Zoom meeting. And some people don't always expect that. So that's why I get that email notification. But it is a really good reminder. Sometimes if you completely forgot that you had a meeting scheduled and you get an email saying, hey, somebody's waiting for you, it's nice to get that reminder email. Okay. Again, I highly recommend you just kind of go through those meeting settings and set them up to your preferences. Any questions so far? I feel like I've done a lot of talking. Does anybody have specific questions they would like to ask, or things that they would like me to address at this point?
Have you tried yourself the captioning feature?
I have not turned it on as a host of a meeting, but I have used it in other meetings that I've been on, or other, I think it was a webinar that I was on. I turned that closed captioning feature on, and that was during our accessibility training. I think that was maybe 2 weeks ago that NAEP SDP did. And it was a neat little feature. It was real-time captioning, but there was a pretty significant lag in what was being said and then what was being translated in the captioning.
Very good.
But it is a nice feature.
I would think that you would get a better accuracy result than if you're using a headset.
As the host?
Yeah, if you're wanting your words to be transcribed. Like right now, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but in my office, I've got a window air conditioner. That might give that that software a little bit of a fit.
Right.
In captioning.
That is a good point. And I don't know if you've noticed, I have Apple AirPods that I just got a couple weeks ago. These are the wireless, and they have a microphone, which it should be doing audio input, not just output. Hopefully it's doing audio input directly from here, but really, really great option because they are wireless, and I feel like I can just do whatever I want. I can walk like 30 feet away from my computer and still have audio, which is a really, really cool thing. But there are a list here. If we go to the CFAES Zoom portal and scroll down to hardware, there are some recommended headsets and a webcam. And these are things that have been tried and tested with Zoom. These are things that CFAES IT can help support and help you set up with Zoom. you know, Apple AirPods are not on that list, but I have had no issues with them. If I did have an issue with them, they might just say, well, we can't support that because that's just not one of our, you know, recommended hardware. So just kind of know that you may already have a headset that you're using that might work just fine. You may already have a webcam. I'm just using my laptop webcam that's built into my MacBook. But a really good set of hardware there. Does anybody have any specific questions about hardware? A headset or a webcam? One thing I will say that I've noticed with Zoom that is not true of Adobe Connect is Adobe Connect, you almost had to use a headset. Otherwise, it was like certain that you were going to have audio feedback. At least that was my experience. With Zoom, if you are not on a headset, I've never gotten weird audio feedback. It's just a really, really great tool. I just personally, I prefer using a headset because I feel like the sound's better and I feel like the microphone is going to be picked up. As I move my head around, my microphone is in the same place, you know, the same relation to my mouth as, you know, as it is no matter which way my head is facing. That's not true of my computer. If I face away from my computer, that audio would, you know, would be coming from a different direction. So that's when you start to experience some of those like weird audio issues. So that's personally, I always enjoy wearing a headset on webinars and meetings like this. Mimi asked the steps to set up a meeting. Okay, no, we have not actually set up a meeting yet, so we can do that here right now. There are a variety of ways that you can set up a meeting, and I will show you 3 different ways that you can do that. Is everybody still seeing my desktop?
Okay. We're seeing your browser.
Okay, so one way that you can schedule a new meeting is logging into Zoom in your web browser and going to the meetings down here and hit schedule a new meeting. You can name it, you can describe it if you want to, you can put when and where. Note that if like this meeting this morning was scheduled from 10 to 11 a.m., it's not going to completely end the meeting at 11 a.m. I can keep this meeting running until noon if I wanted to. This just lets participants know that the intended meeting time is 10 to 11. You can also put the duration. If you're going to have a recurring meeting, let's say you have a committee that meets like every week or every so often, you can hit that as a recurring meeting. You can also, you can require that people register for the meeting so you know exactly who is planning on coming. Here's the option of turning on host and participant video. Notice how I have my host video always turned off, and then I also turn my video for my participants off so that they are ready to turn on their video when they're ready. You can choose your audio feeds, whether you want to do telephone or voice over IP. I always have those as both because then everybody gets a call-in number if they're going to be like on the road, for example. But then you can also just join in on your computer. And then meeting options. If you had some sort of meeting that was not going to be open to the public and you wanted everybody who attended to have to type in a password, you could choose that. Notice how I have my enable join before host option selected, so that way people can join before I can if I was running late for some reason. You can also mute all of your participants upon entry. Sometimes that's a good option, especially if you are working with people who are unfamiliar with Zoom, if they've not used it before. If you have 100 meeting participants, I would almost certainly turn that mute participant upon entry on. As the host, I can mute any one of you anytime during my meeting under my manage participants bar. And then everybody also has a personal meeting ID. You can use that, or if you don't choose to use that, Zoom will just create a new meeting ID for you. And then you can add an alternative host. And I'll say just a few things about an alternative host. What this is really meant to be used for is if for some reason you were unable to join your own meeting, the alternative host could join that meeting and would have full host rights. So they would be able to manage all of the participants, record the meeting, anything that a host would be able to do. What we've run into, and Ken might be able to explain a little bit more about this, what we've run into is if, let's say I add Jamie as an alternative host to a meeting, if Jamie logs into that meeting before I do, then she will have complete host control of my meeting, and I will lose complete host control of my meeting. We have had other people experience the same issue where the alternative host joined before the actual host who was able to join. It doesn't work as a co-host. I've noticed it works as like a full host alternative. So I don't know, Ken, if you can talk to that feature at all or about your experience using it.
Well, I would think the host joined after the alternative host, and in one of those privileges back, the alternative host, you just click on the person's name, and I think the option is there to make them the host.
Yes. Yep. You can easily make anybody a host or co-host in the meeting once you're already in the meeting.
Right.
Yeah. So that option is always there.
Danae, real quick, if I could, use personal meeting ID. If you go back to your profile and you were to click on the edit in the personal meeting ID.
Oh, this is where you can change that, can't you?
Yeah. What we like to do is I put my phone number in there, 614-292-2012. And that way, when I start the meeting with personal ID, somebody calls me or whatever, and they say, hey, I want to join your meeting. I can just say, open up your Zoom client, hit join, and put in 614-292-2012, and boom, they're in, okay? If you have some impromptu things, I can say, Michelle, join me put my phone number in, I'm in Zoom, you know? It's just one way to know that you kind of have your own little personal meeting ID, so.
Could you do your name.number? Or does it not work the same way?
So it has to be a certain length. I think it has to be between 7 and 10 characters. So in my case, Kolka.1 would not be long enough. You could try it though.
It's not even letting me type anything. Oh, it has to be numbers. That's why.
Okay.
Okay.
And you
It has to be numerical.
might want to be careful if you have some meetings already pre-scheduled. Don't change it because that will mess you up. We had that instance when we were resetting Julie's. We had scheduled a meeting. She changed it to her phone number. Then people couldn't get into the meeting because it didn't match up. So we resent the invitation out. So
that's good to know.
Yeah, be cautious when you change it.
Yeah. And Mimi asked, how do you know it's not somebody else's ID? Zoom will not be able to have two of the exact same IDs. So it would probably just tell you that ID is already taken, I assume.
And nobody else has your phone number.
Right. Yep. Unless you happen to be, because I don't know if there's like an option to do like an extension, unless you happen to like share an office with somebody and you two would have the same phone number. Yeah. All right.
The thing to remember about Zoom, everybody, is it can get kind of confusing because there's ways to do things in the Zoom client and then there's ways to do things on the portal. And sometimes you go, this happened to me. I know I've seen that of how to do something. If you go to zoom.us and to their support page, and if you type in, I know I saw enable virtual background, every question that you have, they're just tops. There's all kinds of helpful things in there, and they're very clear. And I've never been stumped, or I've never stumped Zoom support.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the support is very, very great. And the other thing I will mention is because we don't automatically have the webinar license, I went in and I watched, I think it was an hour-long Zoom training offered by Zoom staff on how to set up your webinar and host a webinar. And I found the training material on YouTube, just a simple YouTube search. And it was a wonderfully intuitive training. And if you are planning on hosting like a big webinar for the public, I would highly recommend you find that training. In fact, I can find it and send it out or post it on our blog because it goes through every single setting of when you set up that webinar license. It will tell you how to send out your reminder emails, You can put in, like, I want a reminder email to go out to all registered participants 24 hours in advance. I want one to go out an hour in advance. I want one to go out 5 minutes in advance. That way people are getting, you know, plenty of reminder emails. It's really great because it's all automatic. You set that up when you set up your webinar, and then you just sit back and focus on creating some great content for your program. You don't have to worry about all of the logistics of managing your registrants and sending out reminder emails. So really, really wonderful. So I've showed you how to schedule your meeting through the Zoom portal. Once you get all of that information in there, you would just hit save. And then the next page, it will bring you up your invitation information. You can like copy your invitation and then just, you know, send that out in an email. The other option that you have is doing this all within Outlook. And I'm going to share Outlook now. So when you go to the downloads, remember I told you there was the Zoom client for desktop, and then there was the Zoom application for Outlook. This will help integrate Zoom directly into your Outlook application. So notice how I have Outlook open here. You should all see that. There's 2 buttons up here on my Outlook window. One is to schedule a meeting, and one is to start an instant meeting. So let's say Jamie and I were like, hey, I want to start a meeting with you right now. I could click that. I could start it with video, and then I could send her my meeting room link, and she could, you know, join in right then and there. But you can also hit the schedule a meeting here. It will bring up some automatic options. Do you want your video to start automatically for the host and participants? Your audio options, some other options here. Click continue. And now here's where the magic happens. It will automatically generate this beautifully nice branded invitation. And then you can choose the date and the time, and then you just send it out to anybody. And just like you would send out an email to anybody else, if I wanted to invite my husband in on this meeting, I would just type in his email address, and then there we go. I can just shoot him this email, it'll hit send, and that invitation will go directly to him.
Hey,
yeah.
We're not seeing the email. You're sharing just your
oh, so I'll talk about that in a second. So it's showing my Outlook, but it's not showing the actual email. So here I will go back to.
There you go.
Okay. I did not know that that wouldn't show an actual, because it's still Outlook and it's sharing my Outlook application, but it doesn't show a new message, which is interesting. So this is what it looks like when you click in. If I wanted to invite Jamie to this meeting, I would just type in Jamie's email. If I wanted to invite Ken, I would just type in Ken's email, and so forth and so on. You can invite all of your people, and then you would hit the send button, and it would send them that invitation. They would have it right then and there.
Yep, it's ideal.
Yep.
It's one step. So, Mimi, download that Outlook application. It puts it, if you're on a PC, it looks pretty much the same, and it's all you got to do.
Mm-hmm. Really, really nice. And then the third way that you can schedule a meeting is from your Zoom client on your desktop. So if you open your Zoom client, you have this nice big button on the home button, hit schedule. You get those same options here. You can choose your date and your time. You can add it directly to your Outlook calendar if you want to do that. And then you just hit schedule, and then you can send that invitation out to whoever. I like the Outlook option because you have the option of just sending that automatic email invitation to anybody that's in your contacts, which is really nice. So those are the 3 primary ways to schedule a meeting. Truthfully, do what works best for you. Do what you find most intuitive, I guess, for your personal preferences.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any questions so far? We've covered Zoom client. We've covered some of your initial setup and settings for Zoom. I'll mention a few other things that we've mentioned in some of our previous trainings. If you haven't seen those, you've noticed I've been sharing my screen a lot. One of the things that I love about Zoom is when you share your screen, you don't just have to share your entire desktop. You can share a specific application. So if I hit share, I'm going to go ahead and hit my desktop here. So you're going to see everything that's on my desktop. You're going to see my web browser in the background, my Outlook, you're going to see the Zoom client. But let's just say I just want to share my web browser. I can hit that and say, just share Safari, my web browser. And then you're only going to see that. So you don't get all of the mess of everything else going on in the background of my computer. If you have a PowerPoint presentation, this is great because you can just share your PowerPoint, but you can still have other applications open that your participants are not seeing. So that's another really, really good option. Once you start sharing your screen, you'll notice you can do a new share. So instead of having to actually stop sharing, so I could hit the stop share, and then it's going to go back to our sort of Brady Bunch grid of meeting participants, but I don't have to hit stop share. So I'm going to go back and share Safari. Instead, I'm going to hit new share, and new share just means I want to share a different application. So now I'm going to share, what do I want to share? I'll share my Zoom client, and now you'll just see my Zoom client shared. So it's a great option because you don't have to like stop and restart and stop and restart. You just can move back and forth. The other option that you have here, and again, you're not seeing this because you're not sharing your individual screens, but there's a pause share button. So if I hit pause share, can you guys let me know what you're seeing?
It's your Zoom client.
So you're just still seeing my Zoom client. So in this case, I could do other things on my computer, and you're only going to see that going on. And then I could just hit resume share, and you will, in fact, I could hit pause share and I could do things, I think, on my computer, and you wouldn't see anything else that I'm doing because it just pauses at the last screen. So let's say you were sharing a PowerPoint and you wanted to skip ahead a few slides to like, oh, you know, did I put that in here, or where is that slide? Instead of having to like jump back and forth through all your slides and everybody is going to see you jumping back and forth through all your slides, you can pause share. They're going to stop at that slide that you paused your share at. You can do whatever you need to do, find the information you need to find, skip through 100 slides if you need to, and then share that, like essentially resume your share, and it's going to resume where you stopped, or where you are now at, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of some nice features because you can do some secretive stuff, if you will, in the background, and your participants don't have to see all of that.
Danae Mimi has a question there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what you had to upload your PowerPoints and it would convert it to Adobe Presenter or something like that. It had to be a PDF and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that in Zoom, but in the way that if you wanted to share a document with me in the chat, Danae, are you familiar with this?
I think I have file share turned off in my settings.
Okay.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. In your setting, in your meeting settings, you can turn file share on, and with the chat window, you could actually give me that file.
Yeah, so notice here there's a file transfer button in your settings. Mine is currently disabled.
Is that what you were getting at, Mimi?
I think a lot of people were always told before, at least I was always told, that if you had like a big file, a big PowerPoint file or like a video file, you would have to first upload it into Adobe Connect. Otherwise, you would probably have issues doing a live feed transfer. In Zoom, we have not experienced that technical issue, at least in my experience. People are able to share their screens pretty well. The only time that would be an issue is if I were on like really, really slow internet as the meeting host and I was trying to share my screen, or if any of you were trying to share your screens and you had really, really poor internet speed, then you might have some issues transferring that data to us. And occasionally, like if I'm doing a lot on my internet and my internet speed is kind of slowed down, occasionally I will get an error message that says, what does it say? Something about my Zoom connection. It'll just kind of give me an error message. It basically says like your Zoom connection is slow because your internet's slow right now.
And if you're using video, it will kick over to your photo or your name. It does it automatically. And it doesn't.
Yeah, if you don't have a photo, it'll just be that black box with your name.
Whereas with Adobe Connect,
yeah, it kind of shot the whole meeting for you. Okay, we have about 4 minutes. That was a very like basic overview of like getting Zoom set up. Does anybody have questions or concerns or comments or any other thing that you would like to talk about? Most of the other settings of Zoom we covered in, think we've done 2 previous Zoom trainings in June and July. So we covered a lot of settings like the annotates and polling. We covered that in last month's training. And then we also did a webinar best practices training. I think that was our June one. And those recordings are both available. I think the Zoom portal, Ken, your team has done a really great job of getting our recordings on your Zoom portal. We also have them available on our YouTube channel and then our EdTech blog as well. So there are lots of different trainings out there for you guys if you have trouble. And YouTube is like a gold mine of pretty much anything you could ever want to learn. So if you have specific trouble.
Put the address for your EdTech blog in the chat, would you?
Oh, sure thing.
And then I just want to say to everybody, particularly down here on Columbus campus, if you've got questions, like Claudio there, he and I got in a Zoom meeting the other day, and I was able to talk him through some of the questions he had, or I could have gone over to his office. I'm more than happy to do that and things. So just send me a note or give me a call. And if we can't do it in person, we can hop on Zoom.
Thank you very much.
Claudio, I thought you were going to referee a soccer game or something there, but is that a referee shirt?
No, it looks like on the screen, but it is not. It would be a disaster if I tried to referee.
Yes.
Would be a riot, probably.
Thanks, Patrice. Thanks, Bill. Thank you guys for joining us today. Again, anytime you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Jamie or I. Ken has also been really, really great in helping us with some of those technical questions about Zoom. And the CFAES IT team, I can't thank them enough for everything that they've done to help us get Zoom set up. So far, our feedback has been wonderful about Zoom. We're really, really thrilled to have it.
Adobe Connect gave me this gray hair, and I haven't got it. Zoom. So
thank you. Bye. I gotta go. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.